Was that the best season? Probably.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Will, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome if you happen to be new here. This is going to be my spoiler review for the final 6 episodes of Season 3 of The Legend of Vox Machina. If you have not watched any of this season, please make sure you go check out this season. It has been mind-blowing and awesome and well done, and highly recommend that you watch it. So do check that out, because this video will contain spoilers for the last 6 episodes of Season 3. So if you have not, like I said, watched those episodes, go check them out. Come back and hear my thoughts on them. This will consist of episodes 7 through 12, because I just didn't get time to do them as 2 separate videos. So this is just going to encompass my entire thoughts of the second half of the season, which basically started with its foot on the pedal and did not slow up one bit. So this is generally my thoughts on it, what I thought about some of the major moments that happened, some of the changes that were made from the original campaign, and just what my hopes are for Season 4, because it has been confirmed that they are coming back for a Season 4. Let's jump right into it. So episodes 7 through 9 feature some of the more surprising changes, to my understanding, from the original campaign to what they have done for the series. And even the finale wraps up the story in a very satisfying way that still feels bittersweet, but doesn't end on an argument or a downer or anything like that. So like with episode 7 is when Percy confronts Ripley, and unfortunately Percy is killed by Ripley. This is also the episode where Percy admits his feelings to Vex'ahlia, but Vex'ahlia doesn't immediately say them back to her, which leads to the heartbreak and the depression and the regret for the things that are left unsaid after Percy's death. My understanding is, comparatively to the campaign, because I didn't watch campaign 1, as you should know if you watched any of the other review videos that I've done, they keep Percy deceased a lot longer in the series than they did during the campaign. Apparently, I think they brought him back fairly quickly, but I think leaving him dead for the majority of this campaign, for the majority of this second half of the season, definitely had a much more lasting effect and resonated more with some of the other character dynamics and situations that were happening. And it allowed for a lot more things to progress in a more natural way without Percy being involved, especially with the fight with Thordak. But I really love the musical choices for this episode. I love the ingenuity that Percy did against Ripley and Orthax. Granted, their end comes later on in another episode and Percy's uninvolved. So unfortunately, Percy won't get his win back in that regard. But I really loved how they framed everything, especially with his funeral and everyone being down and upset, especially Scanlan, who finally does show back up, realizing that he wasn't there potentially to help, and he also feels regret over what happened with Percy, which also causes him to decide not to go after Kaylee for a little bit, because he needs to keep his head focused and things like that. And it just shifts the priorities of what Scanlan deemed important. But I think another difference, from my understanding, between this and the campaign was that Pike was much more involved in this part of the story and being there for Scanlan as someone who understands his feelings, understands what he's going through. And I think that's what also ultimately leads to the change in direction for how they resolved the Kaylee storyline, without the huge blow up that I thought was going to happen if you watched my previous review. But that episode was really focused on uniting their forces with the other people in Exandria. They got Earthbreaker Grun back. Vex'ahlia confronted her father again and really kind of got down to the brass tacks of why he was so resentful to them and things like that when in regards with their mother. We also saw the return of Cash and Zara back to try to help them out in their fight against Thordak, which led to the second shocking deaths, because they ended up killing Cash when Cash went up against Thordak during the fight. I loved how they framed it too and how they set it up, because he was crushed by Thordak, but then you see him like stand up. like, what's going on? Because you see Zara distraught and upset, and then he looks down and sees his corpse, and then you start seeing the color shift. And the only person that sees this, of course, is Vax, because he sees that the matron is there to usher Cash into the great beyond. And my understanding that Cash was never killed. Cash is actually in the timeline of role-playing series. He's still alive. So this is a huge departure from what they did. I was really surprised that, he got killed. And it was a shocking moment. It was brutal. That fight was rough because they were ambushed by Thordak, and a lot of people died. And I thought, like, their dad was going to die, and so many other people I thought were going to just go out. This is also when Pike really had to learn how to use the Blade of the Dawn Martyr during the fight, and ended up really taking what Xerxes said to heart about trusting in no one but yourself. And that's really what ended up unlocking the power of the Vestige, which happened in episode 9 when they actually defeat Thordak, and an awesome turn of events, because it was such a dope scene when you see Pike actually like take her holy symbol and throws it in order to absorb the attack from Thordak, after Scanlan and Grog were able to infiltrate the nest and kill most of the spawn, with and without some help from Raishan, which ends up blowing up in their face anyway. But that whole scene and how it led to Vax being the one to take down Thordak, and God, Liam O'Brien's voice acting in that scene is epic and awesome, and it was such a cool takedown, and I'm glad that they were able to handle that in such a beautiful way because of everything that they lost, everything that everyone went through. Because at that point, Scanlan was down. He wasn't necessarily dead, but he wasn't waking up. And so that was the third shocking potential death that happened in that 3-episode run. So it was a lot that happened in 7 through 9. But it ended with the death of Thordak. And when Keyleth decides to go to apologize to Raishan's true intentions are revealed, where she attempts to kill Keyleth, but everyone shows up and she absconds with Thordak's body for who knows what. And those were like the huge moments from those 3 episodes, with losing Percy and Scanlan down for the count for now, and then Cash's death, and so many losses from the battle with Thordak, leading into episode 10, where the team breaks up temporarily. Keyleth is upset, rightfully so, because she knew it in her heart of hearts that Raishan was bad news, but everyone doubted her, even her own team. So she leaves, and then even with killing Thordak, Vex'ahlia is still distraught and still knows that she has to take Ripley off the board. So her and Vax go off to go after her. This is where we wrap Kaylee back in to try to help reach Scanlan. And this is where I thought the whole issue and blow up was going to happen. But again, with some of the changes that they've made to the stories, with the inclusion of Pike more throughout the entirety of the season compared to how she was during the actual campaign, it would have felt very off that he would just blow up like that. So I'm glad they pushed it or turned it into what they did with the actual final episode once Kaylee's able to reach Scanlan and bring him back. The fight with Ripley, with Vex and Vax going up against her, and how sloppy Vex is because of how messed up she is mentally, and it almost puts Vax in danger and everything like that. But this is also where Vax realizes that Percy's soul is still trapped in the gun. So they're able to take down Ripley. I'm not sure what happens with Cabal's Ruin, because she still had it, but I don't know if maybe it just sank to the bottom of the ocean, or maybe Vax took it, is my best assumption. That takedown of Ripley was really good. There was a Titanic reference, which seems kind of weird and out of the blue, but that fight was really cool. You could definitely see how much affected she was with Percy's death and her regret and everything like that. I'm glad that Pike had that time with Kaylee and was able to convince her to come and help Scanlan, and that was able to reach Scanlan more than anything else. And you could definitely see the gears turning of Scanlan's like, listen, I can't do this anymore. I want to spend time with my daughter. But they still have one more dragon to take care of, and Keyleth having to go through her, I guess, Earth trial or Earth right in order to locate Raishan. Everyone's making rash and reckless decisions because they're all emotional and no one's taking the time to talk to each other. But I'm glad she made it through that. And that was a dope sequence when she realized what was her anchor, what was her tether, and it was Vax. And it just sets it up for so much heartbreak, especially what potentially is going to happen with season 4. That was one thing I really enjoyed. And she got her new Titan, her Earth elemental form, very similar to how she got her fire form. I really enjoyed that. Keela's whole journey throughout this season is one of my favorite things of the show. Her insecurity and self-doubt, because while others were doubting her abilities, and especially with her eventually becoming the voice of the Tempest and having to get to that moment, she had to realize that herself and stop doubting herself. And within that trial, that's how she reaches that level to present that to not only her team but everyone else, to the point where people finally like, yeah, we're sorry. Once they're actually back together and Scanlan's back up and on his feet to finish the fight, to take down Raishan, and to just be over and done with it, with everything that happened. So that led into the confrontation with Raishan. Keyleth going one-on-one, able to transfer the disease from Raishan's old body, which was a plan to transfer her consciousness into a zombified version of Thordak's body. Keyleth was able to take her down 1v1, which was really cool. I really enjoyed that fight and how they wrapped up the Chroma Conclave in one fell swoop this season, because they took down the remaining 3 dragons, which took a whole season to do just one. This season they knocked out all 3 with some strong effort and some great losses. After what happened with episode 9, with them defeating Thordak, I wasn't sure what these last 3 episodes, how they were going to consist of, if stuff was going to get dragged to a potential season 4. But from the sound of it, and based off of what information that I've seen, there was no guarantee season 4 was going to happen. Which kind of would explain why this season ended the way it does, because once Raishan is defeated, the only thing left to do is to attempt to resurrect Percy. And this is something that is going to be a great cost, because the Matron of Ravens is the goddess of death, and they protect the sanctity of life and death. So the concept of resurrecting someone who has passed on is very frowned upon, especially if it's being done by the champion of the Matron of Ravens. So there are consequences. Vax's initiative in order to resurrect Percy. He ventures into the gun to confront Orthax and to try to free Percy's soul. And while he is unable to do it on his own, with Keyleth and Pike attempting the resurrection rite, since Cash is unable to do it because Cash is dead. It ends up being Vexalia who's able to convey her feelings and finally admit that she loves him. That is what's able to break through in order for them to resurrect Percy. But again, we come to find out there are consequences for that, and you can see that, like, the skin underneath the vestige on Vax, it looks like it's starting to decay or poison or blacken or whatever's happening to him. And this is what I'm guessing is ultimately going to lead to Vax's death. With all that being said, the way that the season ends, it's an ending that works of 2 ways, in my opinion. Number one, just understanding that I don't think they were guaranteed season 4 when they were writing this season. I think they only had seasons 2 and 3 greenlit. And so with the potentiality of the season 4 may or may not being there, I think the decision to wrap up the Chroma Conclave arc in these 2 seasons made sense. That could explain why everything with all the dragons being taken out one by one felt slightly rushed, but it worked for what they were telling. It wasn't anything that was like completely off. But that being said, once everything's done and they're celebrating, Scanlan reveals to everyone that he's leaving because everything's good to go and he wants to spend time with his daughter, which is again a departure from how he departed from the campaign to begin with. Like I mentioned before, there was a huge blowout where there was the "What's my mother's name" line when everyone was like, "You just see me as a big jokey, you don't know nothing about me," and blah blah blah. He ends up leaving under more aggressive negative terms, whereas this one is bittersweet because it's not just Scanlan that leaves Vox Machina, it's Keyleth decides to continue her Aramente because she needs to finish it, and Bax goes with her, and Percy and Vex'ahlia will go back to Whitestone in order to actually do the things that they want to do. And so Pike and Grog will still be together. So the group essentially breaks up. The music this season is one thing I haven't really touched on, but the music has been fantastic. And the ending song is so fucking good. I would let myself run if it meant that I could save you. Not even hesitate to walk through the fire if it was the only way to get to you. The season ending in that way definitely felt planned, because it's like they're leaving it open-ended if they got season 4, but also if they didn't get season 4, you would be able to say, hey, this was the end of the series. These characters are still alive, still out there, and if the world needs them again, they can come back together. They are getting season 4, so they left the stinger of the cult of the Whispered One with the spinning orb from the end of season 1. Probably going to be the final season. They'll probably wrap up The Legend of Vox Machina with season 4. If they get season 5, great, but I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to do all of the Whispered One stuff. But I can see season 4 being the last one, especially if you're going to transition and doing the Mighty Nine. So I think that's how I would do it if I was in charge, but I'm not in charge, so I'm just a fan who just enjoys what I'm seeing. So overall, like, this season was great. It was fantastic. I think everything was stepped up in terms of the animation quality, the storytelling, the fact that they made strategic changes to what fans would have expected to provide more moments that you wouldn't see coming, but were heartfelt and earned, but also shocking and sad at the same time, depending on what you're talking about. I love these characters. I'm super excited for season 4, and I'm curious if we'll get some sort of a time jump between the ending of season 3 and season 4. It makes the most sense that, maybe Keyleth is pretty much done with her Aramente, and, if they do a few years where maybe Percy and Vex are engaged, and maybe they're the kid on the way potentially. It'll be interesting to see how they spin all of that for season 4 and or season 5, if they do a 5, or if they wrap it up with 4. Those are just my thoughts on the season 3 the rest of season 3. So let me know what you thought about season 3 of Legend of Vox Machina in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for checking out this and all my videos. I really do appreciate it. Anything that I missed in the season, anything you want to talk about that I didn't touch on, please do so in the comments. I love that sort of interaction. You can check out a lot of the other videos I have on the channel. I've done all of season 1 and season 2. So look forward to those. Again, if this happened to have been the first time you checked out one of my videos and you happen to enjoy this, feel free to like and share this around the internet, and of course subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow me at all the different socials. They're at the end of this video. And as always, until next time, critters, I thank you, I love you, and I will catch you later. See ya. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you did like this video, why not give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends? You can subscribe to the channel by clicking on my gorgeous little face right over there. You can follow me on all the various social media platforms right below. And last but certainly not least, if you've got a few extra minutes, why not check out one of the lovely videos floating right over here. Later.